Welcome back to the Kingsway Podcast.
Welcome.
We are jumping into a new and exciting episode.
Yes. This is going to be the best episode we've put out so far. Definitely in the top 180. Basically, so here's what happened. We have finished our Matthew series.
Yes.
And right now, as you're listening to this, if you're listening to this the day it came out or within the couple days, I'm at camp. I'm not even here.
And I am the gopher for camp.
Yeah.
And also dad.
You are the taxi shuttle for at least two human beings.
Also, I am
varying by 40 years in age.
I feel like I'm in the Navy SEAL, also the cargo ship, also taxi.
Yeah.
Also random whatever needs to happen person.
You've been demoted from senior pastor to intern?
Yes, 100%. I actually know less than interns probably about what is going to happen next week, and I love it.
So that's what's happening if you're listening right when we're dropping this.
Yep.
But we're pre-recording this because now that we're out of the Gospel of Matthew for a season, we're going to come back to it about the beginning of next year sometime, we hope. That's when we're planning on doing it. We'll do it at some point.
We're going to get to it, and it really has gone really well. And we're pausing to kind of go into the fall, and I'm excited about the series we're just about to start, but we're not going to talk about that today.
The sermon series.
Yeah.
But because we're not going through a Bible book, we're going to stop our Sunday study halls for a while, which means we get to talk about whatever we want.
Whatever we want.
But we're not talking about random stuff this time. We are directed. We were impacted.
We were, and we have a couple things planned out episode-wise. This is the kind of the thing that's been going through my mind that was sparked by someone sending me a link to a sermon with some curious thoughts and wanted to know my opinions, and I told them I really liked the sermon, and I was like, this is probably going to make the podcast, so thank you very much. So I was telling Ryan about it, and he was like, yeah, let's do that on the podcast, which is funny because you just asked me, like, are you sure you can remember what was the sermon?
We had a whole conversation.
Yes. I was like, yeah, I'm weird. I'm broken. It sticks.
Trevor's memory and my memory catch different things.
100%.
My memory catches numbers and data points, whatever.
I'm horrible with birthdays. I can't remember when I'm supposed to be. I can't even remember my schedule half the time.
I remember telephone numbers. I remember, just like statistics.
I have like 4 numbers that I use for almost everything because if I don't use those numbers, all other numbers leave me.
4 sequences of digits or 4 digits?
4 sequences of digits.
Okay.
4 sequences. So I have to run through those.
Tell me 3 of them.
No, I cannot.
No, okay,
I can't. This is going on the internet.
Anyway, so let's get to what we're talking about.
Basically the as you've probably seen at the title, and you're probably curious, there's this new wave of kind of popular Christianity that's kind of come into light in the last, I would say, 3 to 6 months. I think it's been around for a very long time, but I think it's become kind of a popular topic, discussion online.
It's been around, but it's been a thing that people have been summarizing really well.
Yeah.
And we heard a summary that kind of... we both resonated with.
Absolutely. And one of the things that I think has changed in the last 3 to 6 months is people are now using what we're going to talk about, like basically cultural Christianity as like a term of not embarrassment, but actually a definition.
Yeah.
And so
it's I feel like we're finally crossing the finish line of if you think about like the nuclear family, the 1950s, those kind of churches there. And the 100+ years before that, our nation in some founding documents says it's based on religious freedom, but more what it means is like that denominations of Christianity are free from government approval or oppression.
Yep.
Now, it really is religious freedom a lot broader than that, but that was like the main idea.
Yep.
The England can't force us to be Anglicans.
Yep.
And in fact, a lot of us are fleeing denominational persecution. Even like the start of the Christian church is from, hey, I was a Presbyterian and I had all the right beliefs and they still fired me.
Yep.
Why is all this stupid stuff important? So there's a lot of denominational infighting. And so I'm going to get to the point here in like 1 minute.
I'm ready.
Okay. So on all across America, there are streets that cross, and on all 4 corners of that intersection, there are churches of different denominations that deeply hate each other. And this is like when sheep stealing is huge. It's like, we're going to try to attract and win over members of your church, but we think so poorly of your church and so highly of our church that we need them to be re-baptized into our church. And so I say all that to say, church used to be in America about their approval. They're like they like it. They like me, and I haven't bumped up against the status quo that they think I shouldn't bump into. Church now, I feel like, is crossing the finish line of moving all the way towards matching my approval. I don't care what other church people think. Church just needs to make me happy, not them happy. Whoever that denomination or local church or whatever, whoever the mass is, it just needs to make me happy. So like, for instance, some of the things like we've seen in the past 3 or 6 months, Richard Dawkins, I know you're going to bring this up, famous atheist, talks about how he loves cultural Christianity. He pretty much said, you can take away the supernatural Jesus, but leave the Christmas carols and leave some of the foundations for our culture's morality and leave some of the whatever. And it's the least offensive religion in comparison to Islam and some other ones, in his own words. And there have been other people, Elon Musk, interviewed by Jordan Peterson. I'm just quoting things you have told me at this point.
Well, and it is true. And I think what's starting to happen is people are just calling it what it is in their minds. Like, they love the concept of Christianity as a guiding principle, as something that they believe the community that it creates, the way that it transforms people, what the morals when lived out actually benefit. And they're basically like, I love all that stuff, just not the God and Jesus stuff.
Yeah, and this is Thomas Jefferson Christianity. Maybe not exactly, but like deist Christianity. God did stuff in the world. Maybe you even think it's just the teachings of Jesus, so maybe it's not supernatural. But the deist view is Christian deist view, it's God created the world, and then he kind of went hands off. And there's some stuff I like about this whole story, this whole religion, and I'm going to take that, and there's stuff I don't like, and I'm going to leave that, which puts you as the authority rather than God, but also you as the authority rather than your community. Nobody can put you in check about what is true about God.
Absolutely. And what ends up happening is what I want to actually talk about today in this discussion was a sermon that was preached at the Crossing in Columbia, Missouri. And we can get the link and put that in the description. Hopefully, I will send it to you.
Yeah, we have a family at our church who graduated from Mizzou, and that's like their Columbia church.
Absolutely, and they love the teaching up there. And the sermon was on country club Christians, and the concept around that was like, how do you know if you're going to church because it's a country club versus if you're going to actually come and be a member or a part of the kingdom of the faith. And so one of the things that he starts to lay out is, I think, how do we respond, or what do we do when we start to feel ourselves enjoy this to a place? And he defines basically the idea behind this is there are 3 levels of Christians right now that are pretty easily defined. And what I loved about this, before I go any further, is it is perfectly fine to say that I just enjoy the community of church as a starting point. And so what he's finding is that a lot of people are coming back to church because they love belonging. They just love to belong to the community, feel seen and loved and heard and known. And that is amazing. But Christianity is not meant to stay there. Jesus invited people at that level. He invited them to come and follow before they ever did the second step, which is believe in him. Believe that he's Lord, believe that he's the Christ, believe that he died on the cross, believe that believe that he came back. Like, that's the next step. And a lot of people even stay there. But he says then Christianity, if you truly believe in Jesus as that, then asks you to behave a certain way. Love the Lord your God, believe in him, but then also love your neighbor as yourself. And so what he said is starting to happen even to Christians that have been a part of church their whole life is they stop behaving, then they struggle and deconstruct and stop believing, but they still love to belong.
Yeah.
And so it's kind of a healthy conversation, because I think there's a temptation right now to think that faith, once you believe and once you start behaving, that you're good for forever. Like that's,
Yeah.
and and I'm not trying to say like, can you lose faith or whatever? I'm more just saying, like, is there a part of perseverance and like fighting for your faith that's actually a necessary component? And I think we just talked about it a couple weeks ago that I believe it absolutely is. And so one of he basically uses 3 different illustrations to help you understand whether or not you're just in the belong.
Like 3 criteria.
3 criteria. And it helps you identify whether or not you're feeling the tension. And the first one, are you going and belonging to church because you want to be entertained or you want to be educated? And the difference in those two is like, are you coming to church to learn? Are you coming to learn what Jesus is like, to see if believing is an option, to grow in your belief? Are you coming to learn how to behave and to learn to be Christ-like and to actually want to imitate? Or are you just coming and hoping that it's entertaining and it makes you feel good and it makes you feel a part of it? Those 2 camps not necessarily are bad all the time. It's just that if all you are is looking for entertainment, that may mean that you're looking to just belong and you haven't really gotten into the camps of believing or behaving. And so if you want to believe or you want to learn how to behave a little differently, you have to start seeing the community of church not as cultural or as entertaining, but as challenging your education, like learning and growing and changing some of the stuff in your life. And I feel that tension where people will say, well, I don't feel like I'm being fed. And I don't hear that necessarily at our church too much, but, I'm not being fed. And in my mind, I'm like, most of the time it's an engagement problem, not an educational problem. It's not entertaining enough to keep my attention, and therefore I'm not growing in my belief and in my behavior.
I don't know if the guy talked about it this way. I feel like he really likes alliteration and rhyming and stuff because of belong, believe, behave, and educate, entertain, whatever. Like they have to have the same letter. But the word that's been haunting me that like encompasses this topic isn't just educate, which is like we're going to add knowledge to your brain, but the word formation.
Yeah.
This is a Christian smart people word talking about like changing not just the amount of stuff or the kind of stuff or whatever, but changing your behaviors and like what you want and how you act and like your priorities, your demeanor, your everything. So like there's a whole big topic within Christianity called spiritual formation.
Yep.
How can I be formed into a kind of person who is a disciple of Jesus, into a kind of person who prays and gives and does the fruit of the Spirit, shows them and like whatever.
Yeah.
So it's not a like, can you pass the quiz at the end of church thing? It's a like, the world needs Jesus, and are you signing up to be him to somebody else?
And that's, I think, part of the like believing and behaving is moving this forward, and the belonging is just being a part of it. It's just attaching yourself to it, which goes along to the second one, which is, are you on a cruise or are you on a battleship? And that to me at first seems like, I know we've talked about this a lot, like I don't want to sign up for like, we are the army of God, type of like mentality, but that's not the way the illustration is. And he talks about this really cool, and I highly encourage you to go watch the message.
We'll link it.
I'm completely tearing it apart in the sense of just taking the best parts and giving it to you. But at the same time, the way he gets you there sometimes would help you maybe connect these even more.
Yeah.
But he talks about how cruise ships use this very unique word to make you feel a certain way. And it's a weird word that's not used very many places. And it's the word pamper. And so he's like, let us pamper you with luxury. Let us pamper you with this buffet. Let us pamper you with our spa. Basically what it comes down to is it's a psychological way of making you feel Because, all right, as a listener, play along this for a second. When I say the word pamper, what's the first word that you think of, or what's the thing that you
What do you think
attach
it
to?
applies to?
Yeah, and if you're like me, and I'm not trying to get in your head, but diapers, like it's the pamper diapers, or babies, and that's exactly what they want you to think of. Is basically let us let you be children. Let us let you have to not be an adult.
You don't have to make any decisions.
No decisions, no responsibilities. You are free as a child again. And I think a lot of times, if we're not careful and all we do is belong and we're cultural in our attendance of church, we are looking to be pampered. We're looking for everyone to hold our hand, to give us the information, to figure out, how to make us feel the most comfortable,
Yeah.
And it ends up feeling like when that's the goal, then the church's job is to continue to do that rather than a battleship. And why he uses the battleship is because everyone on the battleship has their marching orders. Everyone on the battleship knows they need to know their job and that they play a very vital role. And that if they're not learning and growing and getting the stuff, then the ship won't work.
If they're not
without them.
participating.
They're not participating, then they're not actually on the battleship. They're actually a hindrance, not a help.
Yeah.
And people aren't realizing when you believe and behave, you're starting to get your marching orders to be a part of what's going on in the movement of love. And it is a battle to love well. It is hard to love well. It is not easy to be like Jesus. It's got to be intentional.
Yeah.
And it's not always going to feel like pampering.
This is one reason. I'm going to make a worship ministry side note. This is one reason that in all of the various places I've led worship, I've had a hard time with church services that are decidedly different styles. And it's not like different genres of instrumentation so that we can like make you feel at home from a Latin country or something.
Yeah.
It's like our church has multiple generations who cannot handle it.
Yeah.
If you don't do enough of their favorite kind of songs. And I've always seen, this is such a broad term, and maybe your church does it super well. It's not just like demonizing everybody and anybody who does something like this, but like churches that do multiple styles of singing, but then everything else is identical or whatever. It seems like such a pacifying move.
Yeah.
If I don't give you this many hymns or this many songs from your favorite artist or this many songs from the radio or this many songs from whatever, then you'll start crying because you don't have your pacifier of these few songs.
Yeah,
and it's
you're not being
challenged at all.
You're not being pampered.
Yeah, it's not challenging at all. Where the worship ministry that I would love to lead is like, these are all prayers set to music and we're all praying, whether or not it's songs from the past 5 years.
I'd love you to participate.
Or songs only from before the Reformation or songs like whatever.
Or a blend.
I don't care about genre or music style or whatever. I have a preference. But like my hope is that these are challenging and like nurturing in a helpful, formative way and like doing something to you rather than like, there weren't any mashed potatoes today. I'm leaving.
And it is like we want to be hospitable.
Yeah.
We want to provide care, but there is a place where it stops being that because of the outcry rather than, and it becomes assumed or expected.
Yeah.
And that's when I think you were dead on. I don't think it's just in the worship area. I think it'd be in any area.
It can be anywhere, but it's a question of who's here for who.
Yep.
And was it JFK or whatever? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country.
Yep.
It's not randomly trying to demand that, but it's like, hey, the most good will be brought about in the world if we all jump on the Jesus way rather than only talk to Jesus when our way's in trouble and hope that Jesus jumps onto our way or whatever.
Absolutely. And I think that leads to the third one, which is comfort over sacrifice. And it's just this thought that if things are uncomfortable, then it must be wrong. And the problem with that, as we've discussed multiple times on this podcast, is that growth is uncomfortable. Like growing most of the time feels hard. It's new. It's it's something that's not necessarily always in control. It's unseen. It takes pushing outside of what you know.
It feels. I feel like we've talked about this a lot specifically in the episode where you talked about your health transformation journey, and I'll try to link that. If I don't, call me or email me or whatever with the nastiest language you can. But yeah, you talked about this in your health journey where it's like the only way to get strong is to push yourself and feel weak.
Yep.
Is to go to the gym and exercise and walk out and have a hard time going down the stairs.
Yep.
Same way, the only way to get smart is to encounter things smarter than you and feel dumb.
Yep.
And there's another example or two I think we had.
Yeah, there's
where it's like
lots of them. Yep.
just assuming you're smart or assuming you're strong will actually maintain that you are neither of those things.
Going to the doctor will have you feeling sick while you're actually doing what's healthy.
Yeah.
Like just lots
surgery.
Yes.
It's
lots
like
of
I need to be
things.
wounded to be healed. Man, that sounds like Isaiah 53.
Going to counseling will make you feel sad while you're learning how to be content.
It'll make you feel broken while you're being healed.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like those types of things, we all know that that's true. But for whatever reason, we stall out a lot of times especially in church culture, of recognizing that oftentimes when we're growing as a church or things are changing as a church or we're doing things that don't necessarily meet your preferences or aren't exactly for your stage of life. Perfect examples, we're doing our children's camp this week, like we talked about.
Yeah.
And the amount of resources and time and effort and volunteers are awesome, but there are a good chunk of our people that don't have kids.
Yeah.
And that this doesn't affect directly in any way. But yet we have decided to push into that discomfort and to push into that difficulty to provide an opportunity for growth.
Yeah. To serve them, to
Yes.
sacrifice for these kids, and honestly, a little bit secretly for like the adult leaders and other people who can also learn and also grow.
Absolutely.
But to sacrifice for them because it's worth serving them rather than to live the pampered cruise ship comfort life
Yep.
of like, they're in school, they have parents.
Yep. I did that already. I'm done. My time's over.
I did camp last year. Why'd I have to do it this year?
Yep.
A real question I meant. No, I'm kidding.
And I think that's what's so important about this. Like, I don't want to speak too lowly about the idea of people being drawn and feeling like belonging to a church is special, because truthfully, I think Jesus never pushed anyone away that loved to be along, but to belong. But I do think that he had moments of challenge, and he had moments of demanding sacrifice, and then he had marching orders. And so, like, there is a part of this that I think if you continue to be a part of a church or Kingsway and you love to belong, I don't want you to be surprised. I don't want you to feel shame or guilt, but I don't want you to be surprised if we're trying to challenge you, if we're trying to educate you, if we're trying to call you to sacrifice, not because we're like some manipulative group of people that's trying to get something from you.
No.
But we believe actually God has something for you that takes the stripping away of your mind to a new perspective, a revealing of your heart the way that God designed it, an understanding of things unseen that bring greater depth to life.
Yeah.
And that takes growth. It takes sacrifice. It takes not just belonging, but believing that that's the way, and then choosing to operate inside of that system.
Jesus does his best work not through professionally trained, highly educated pastors, but he does his best work through people you wouldn't expect, through people who are directly or indirectly discipled by those first people, directly discipled by spiritual giants who just know their Bible really well and have never worked in a church. And it's those random outside of the box moments where Jesus does his best work, whether it's in the workplace or it's a bunch of church people with no pastor present, like putting on some prayer meeting and just all deep in prayer about something. Like, so what we're about is not getting extra money or buying our third yacht or whatever. Don't even have the first two yet. But like what we're about is church mobilization and activation, where people are just shocked by the love and care that we can have for each other, because Jesus has loved us and cared for us first.
Absolutely.
It's like an urgent call to mobilize rather than Jesus did good work. Now I'm going to sit in my lazy boy till
I'm going to come to church
end.
and be entertained, and I'm going to love because they pamper everything to me, and it feels so comfortable.
And it's so this can apply to a lot of different areas. The criteria that tell you how well you're doing at the behaving and like being further along in that maturity process. What to you are like some signifiers, some like fruit of being a mature
so
Christian
like to
who's not
bring this full circle, and we have I think done we don't have members at Kingsway.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
And so like the reason why I think this is a really important discussion is like, and I hope if you've continued to listen, it kind of helps you connect to this. We don't have official members at Kingsway, and it is connected a little bit to this kind of idea of cultural Christianity.
What was it, 25 or so years ago, 23, 25, that our church and our church leaders decided to get rid of the congregational vote.
Yep.
That is like, the last church I worked at had a congregational vote, and they would make jokes about a certain guy on staff who preached for his trial Sunday so that the congregation could get to meet him and hear him preach and then vote on him getting in. And he didn't do well on his sermon. He was really nervous and sweat, whatever. And it was like, they almost didn't let you be their pastor.
Yep.
What?
Well, and that brings us to why we choose to do that. We chose to go a direction where we felt like the elders had received a calling. We were pruning a little bit of things, and that I wasn't even here present, so I don't want to speak too.
I was absolutely not here.
So this is before my time. But basically, they came to the conclusion that we didn't want members; we wanted owners. And members have rights, owners have responsibilities. And so the thought behind this is we're not members of a country club that we get to come in and have votes about what makes us comfortable and what pampers us and what's the thing that we want to be entertained by. No, you come in and you own the responsibilities of the kingdom work, and you are called to love and to sacrifice and to be a person that takes their marching orders and goes and lives it out, not just inside these walls, but to our community, with our families, to the community, to the world. And what ends up happening is it dissolves hierarchy in the congregation. There's not somebody that's been here for 25 or 50 years that has more power and influence, and so he sways votes, and those votes then sway more votes, and so there's a power structure that's underneath the leadership.
Yeah.
And it becomes a mob mentality if we're not careful.
There was a church that I served at in the past that legitimately did run some of their ministry decisions, how they do services, how they talk about events that they promote, whatever, through what people will like. Mm-hmm. And if that's an entertainer, you're like, great, that's super smart. If that's a doctor, you're like, arrest that man.
Yeah.
Like if he's like, I give out pharmaceuticals based on what people like, you're like, you should go to prison forever.
Well, and that's what teachers would be the same way.
Yes.
Like they don't go to the students and ask what they like. They just teach what they need to teach.
And there's a balance to these things. Good doctors and good teachers, they like get to know the people they're serving so that they can have as much information as they can before they decide what they need.
And there's hierarchy and there's conversation. It's not like we're just standing above everything. It's not like we wouldn't listen to any critiques. Yeah. And it's not like we don't have relationships.
Yeah.
And I agree with you on all of that. But what ends up happening is when someone comes to Kingsway and they want to be a part of our church and they come and they ask myself or you or any of our staff, like, I'd like to become a member. It's fun to be able to look at them and go, I can help you so fast become a member. Are you ready? You just attend, give, and you serve.
And then you are still not a member.
Then you're not a member. You're in.
You're an owner.
You're an owner. You're in the church. And it's one of those things where like that's all it takes to be at the highest level of connection.
Yeah.
In order to be a part of us. And then after that, it's your job and our job to build the relationships that would make you feel like a member of the body of Christ. And It's not a position in a country club or in a Senate or in a democracy. So it really helps us kind of derail power plays, but also empower people to still fully do what God has called them to do, and for the church to be alive and active, and then also to build a relationship with their leadership and not just be able to, circumvent it or do power struggles. And it really has been effective.
We've had people who come from different church backgrounds who then show up here for a while and see something that we aren't doing that their last church did. And often, if this is the first time they've talked to us, the way they'll phrase it is, you guys need to, and it's like, you guys need to have a women's event. You guys need to have a whatever. We're not anti any particular whatever outpouring of biblical truth and spiritual formation, but we're like, sounds like you have a heart for it. Would you like to run it? And they're like, whoa, that's not what I was saying. And we're like, huh. But then, like, the people who have been here longer, this isn't you have more power, but they're more used to the answer of like, okay, how would you like to see that happen? We'd love to support you to help this kind of thing happen, and like have guide rails and depending on the event or what it actually is, like budget some money for it or whatever. Like, we'd love to empower you to do this thing that breaks your heart. That we just don't have time to do.
And it's one of those things that if it's breaking your heart, and obviously it probably breaks my heart to a degree, but if it's pointed out by the Holy Spirit and God has revealed this as something that you believe is impactful, like, I do believe there's a certain level of like, hey, come on in, let's figure it out. Like, I would love to empower you and figure out how to make this something that would move forward. And, it really has been, it's amazing. One of our values is we keep it simple. And that's just because we believe that people's schedules are busy enough, and that taking advantage of the places you've already been placed with influence and living out those places of influence with love and compassion and patience and kindness is probably as effective as any program that a church is ever going to come up with.
That may seem like counterintuitive, but also busyness is not a fruit of the Spirit.
No.
In fact, slowness
is.
It is patience. There we go. Patience is a fruit of the Spirit.
Hurry is the enemy of your soul. That's Dallas Willard.
Do we have it up here? Yes, we do. If you're watching the podcast and not listening to it, you're watching me not drop any books. Definitely not all of these books. Ooh. And The Ruthless Elimination of Hurry by John Mark Comer. I saw John Ortberg and I was like, have I been saying that wrong?
Nope, John Mark Comer.
He expounds on we've mentioned this book before. He expounds on a topic, a line that Eugene Peterson has said Dallas Willard, that hurry is the enemy of your soul. And he just writes a whole book out of it talking about like how to slow down. Anyway, that's why one of the reasons we have keep it simple as a thing. It's like, if we're too busy as pastors and professional Christians who are paid money to be Christians, like, then we don't have time to meet with people, to form deep relationships, to do things that are the church, because the church isn't programs. The original word for church, ekklesia in Greek, just means gathering or assembly. I mean, it's about the people.
Absolutely. I just think about my schedule today. I went from a breakfast meeting with a good friend who's going to potentially lead a small group to our preaching meeting that had, I think, 5 other people there that were willing to come and kind of be our Bible study / focus group for this upcoming series. Straight from that to meeting a friend at the gym, where I had a conversation with somebody that goes to our church that's brand new, and then met somebody that's brand new at the church and worked out with them, and then have a conversation with a guy that has never come to our church, but I have a good relationship with. And I got back here at like 3:15, 3:45, and I was like, I have not stopped talking to people since 8:15. Like, I have left room. Today, yes, if I had to go to meetings or an event
and we did have meetings, but if we had an event today that lasted all day, maybe we would have some great program that would reach some people with some depth. But what we would have said no to by having that event is all of these random conversations that are either planting a seed about Jesus in somebody's heart, or watering it, or tilling the soil, or doing whatever. And like, relationally, the way Jesus did it, nurturing the seed of faith in somebody's heart.
Oh, and it to me, it's a calling. But again, it's like, if I had to be here planning an event, not even getting to do it.
Yeah.
But like just planning an event. And I was so stressed on all the events that we had coming up that I didn't have time to spend with people. That would break my heart. One of the best advice that I got from Grant that was here before me, Grant Agler, he's the senior pastor when I first started here back in, I want to say it was 2009, or maybe it was 10. Anyway, I got my first performance review, and I still remember I thought I was killing it. Youth group was going really well. We gained like 4 kids. We had like 11 now or something. And I was only part-time, and this was my first semester of full-time. So, I'd been there about a year. And he came in and he goes, "You're failing." And I was like, "What?" And he said, "You're in this building too much. I did not hire you to be in this building. Get out of this building." And he's like, "You're showing up. That's great, but you're just sitting in your office. Get out of this building." And he said, "You need to be at the schools, at the coffee shops. You need to be at breakfasts. You need to take people to lunch. Like, you need to get out of this building and be with people in the community. That's why I hired you. That's what you are good at. It's what you're supposed to be doing." And I have asked the elders multiple times that if this is what they want me to continue to do, and it's what I believe they see as my strengths. It's a Holy Spirit thing. It's what I feel like I'm called to do. It feels very, very like untangible sometimes, where I'm just like, what did I do this week? Send
us a report
exactly, where I'm like, some really hard conversations.
One was in the freezer aisle at Walmart. Exactly. One was at the gym. One was at
text messages, like driving here. Like, and like there's just, I don't know. And it's been one of those things that I feel why that value has added so much help, because that's what I want our people to do. When we say we want to empower you to be an owner, that's what we want. When we say we want you to believe and behave, it's not just about, I want to be a moral person that has perfect faith so that I can feel good about myself. It's because you're in a place where your education and your battle cry, your battle orders, and the willingness to sacrifice makes all the difference if that's in play.
And I'm going to make a claim that the guy who preaches probably didn't make. Maybe he didn't make. I don't know. I didn't listen to it yet. I'm going to listen to it later when I link it. But even though he used alliteration, so like belong is the first one, whatever. What I love about that word is that it's not attend.
No.
I can attend. I've attended many churches one time because I'm traveling, it's a vacation, or when I was in college, I was on camp teams or whatever. So I'm going to a church for exactly one day to present on something or just be a presence to talk about the college I went to or whatever, and then leave. And I never go back. I've attended many churches and I belonged to none of them. None of them missed me.
Yep.
None of them, whatever. But belonging is more than attending. And so attending, you can say like, do I have anything better I could do this morning? Like, would I rather attend church or go to brunch? Would I rather attend church or go to a baseball game, attend church or whatever? But I have season tickets, Jesus. That's a quote from a thing from 15 years ago. I got tickets to the Super Bowl, Jesus. Anyway, not important. But to belong to church is like, I need to be there for them and I need to be there because they want me there.
Yeah.
And that's where I should be. And it's not out of guilt or like legalism, but like, those are my people.
Those are my people.
And you can belong to church outside of a Sunday morning, which I feel like is half of what you're doing. Some of it is friendship and evangelism, but some of it is just being the church to Kyle, to whoever. I don't know. To whoever you meet at any time of the day.
And that's what I mean. Like there's a certain level of like, if you're just in the belong camp right now, that's okay.
Yeah.
People will miss you and you miss the people here. And that is Jesus invited every one of his disciples to just belong first. Come and follow. Come and be a part of this. Come and see. And that is totally fine as a starting place. I just want to give the warning that I feel like Jesus himself would eventually do. It took sometimes 3 years for him to do this with some of his disciples. But eventually he's going to ask you, who do you think I am?
He's going to ask you tough questions.
Yep. And who do you say I am?
Yeah.
Am I God, Lord, or am I just fun to hang out with? Am I, and then he's going to ask you, do you want to grow? Do you want to get better? Do you want to get healthier?
Yeah.
Do you want to see your family get healthier? Do you want to see, your community, your job, like whatever it is? And he will help you if you believe in him.
He'll help you grow
Yep.
in the same way that people grow in working out and in learning whatever.
Yep.
He will help you grow, but it will feel like a cross.
Well, I thought this was a healthy discussion, and I'm glad we got a chance to do it. Again, I will link the sermon. It really is based on it's based on a couple different passages, but it is based on, there's just multiple times inside the Gospels, and I think he quotes Luke of just like the difference between Judas and Peter.
Yeah.
Whereas like Judas, he belonged the whole time, but then when it came down to it, he just didn't believe in Jesus. And even though Peter believed or belonged to Jesus when he had his moment, he still believed in Jesus and came back.
Yeah.
And Jesus restored him and taught him and his whole faith. And so both that's the tale of the warning of like both those people belonged to Jesus for 3 years, and at the end they had very different endings. And so it's okay to be a belonger, right? Be with Jesus, but at the end, like there's going to be a time where you're going to have to answer the questions.
There's one other thing I want to say.
Yeah.
I feel like behave can trigger some thoughts
Legalism.
about legalism. It's like, okay, I belong and I've said the confession of faith, and now I have to obey the 10 Commandments.
Yep.
And while that maybe the 10 Commandments, not particularly, but while that's like generally true, I feel like more of what it is belong rather than just attend. And then believe through like allegiance. And like I acknowledge these true things about Jesus, but also I see him as trustworthy and reputable and worth following.
And who he really is.
And then behave is not just behave according to the rule book, but behave like Jesus.
It's not conforming, it's transforming.
Yeah,
Right.
it's not avoiding punishment. It is finding purpose.
Yep.
So like behave could be stop road rage, but it could also be like free up some time in your day to drive some people around who are like shut-ins and widows and whatever, who need to go to the doctor or the grocery store. Like that can be a purpose, a little ministry that nobody knows about.
Yep.
And what you're doing is like blessing God's heart and making him smile and having him see Jesus in you at work and whatever. So like more purpose makes more sense out of like, I'm cutting off these things and doing these other things rather than just behave, which is like, stop being a bad boy.
Well, and I think the way that he talks about it, maybe I'm not remembering this, but I think he talks about it more like, you have some things in your life that if you could change the way that you behave, it would really help.
Oh,
you know what I mean? Like it would really help. And like, he can help you with that. Like there's some things that he can help you transform in your life that may challenge you and may be difficult or cause sacrifice, but you're gonna have to listen to him. But in the end, it would be very beneficial, and it's not just fit the mold in the sense of just because it's actually got some things behind it. And that's what I love about transformation in the New Testament. Is it feels like you're dying, that's what Jesus would describe, while you're earning your life, while you're saving your soul. And so like there's this part of transformation that is difficult because it takes deep belief.
Yeah.
And it normally takes a deep connection to a community, like you feel like you belong. And when you belong and you have a deep belief, that transformation, that behavior starts to be seen as something that benefits the community, it reveals God's trustworthiness and his faithfulness and his fruitfulness in your life. And it doubles down, triples down on going for it. Not in a legalistic way to meet the needs of to be able to belong.
God's finally happy because I stopped doing bad things, but rather like,
I love these people so much. I feel so connected to them, and I love God, and I trust him so much. I would love to be more of a benefit. I would love to reveal my just awesome adoration for what he's done.
Yeah.
Let me move forward. So this has been awesome. I hope that you'll hit the like button if you have enjoyed it. Share it with somebody. Like I said, we'll link the fitness one and
their sermon
in there. Leave a comment, send an email, leave a review if you're watching on any of the podcast apps.
Send a messenger owl.
Yeah, send a physical letter. We love those. They cheer us up. We'll read it.
We'll read it on air.
Anything else, Ryan? Good for the cause? Awesome. Have a great and glorious day in the Lord. We'll see you the next time.
See ya.